Welcome back, everybody. This is essentially part 2 of my Sonic Frontiers video. But if you didn't watch part 1, that's fine. It's not necessary for today's discussion. That consists mainly of my review for Frontiers, and you can find a link to it in all the appropriate places. Today, I just want to talk about what could be in the somewhat near future for the Hedgehog series. And much of that is speculation, so keep that in mind. Okay, let's start small with the free DLCs that were announced not long after Frontiers' release. Towards the end of my review, I mentioned I wanted more from Frontiers, and I was already thinking up ideas for what could be added to the game. We'll cover that in a bit, but the official roadmap lays out 3 different updates we'll be receiving. It seems like they'll get more interesting as time goes on, but let's start with number 1. The jukebox shows Sonic jamming out in the desert. This could be simply a way to choose your favorite songs from the game to listen to in the open zones, background music to accompany your adventure. I'm assuming it wouldn't be a physical jukebox you'd have to stand next to, though if it included some sort of rhythm game mechanics with Sonic's sick dance moves, I'd be so open to that idea, as a Sonic rhythm game is sorely needed considering the vast amount of amazing songs throughout the series. Though, I think this is unlikely for now. But who knows, maybe the jukebox will even feature songs from the past. Get some Crush 40 into the game. Next in Update 1 is a photo mode, which is cool I guess. Many games have featured a photo mode in the recent past, but to be honest, I rarely ever use them beyond the obligatory Tryout Photo Mode trophy. Maybe some others will have a blast with this one, and it could maybe lead to some fun Sonic memeing for a few weeks, like what happened with data greeting. But the most exciting portion of Update 1 seems to be new challenge modes. The image shows first some levels, so it'll likely be akin to the key challenges already in the game, though with time attack, ring count, and red rings already accounted for, I'm unsure what more they could do. The Chaotix mission mode comes to mind, though I'm not sure these levels are built for that. It also shows Sonic in what looks like Chaos Island, as well as a glimpse of Super Sonic, so I'm guessing battle challenges will be included. It's not clear when Update 1 will be released, but number 2 will likely arrive on June 23rd. If you're not aware, that's Sonic's birthday. Also that seemingly arbitrary release date for Sonic Origins, which kept that game at a hard deadline. The other Sonic birthday celebration that comes to mind is his party in Generations. Cool to see his friends again, but that occasion's cut short before the festivities could begin. I have no idea what Frontiers could have planned for Sonic's 32nd. Open Zone Challenge. It shows what looks like timers in the image, and again in the icon, so some sort of time attack in the open zone is to be expected. I wonder if these will be like the map revealing challenges already present, or if something interesting will set them apart. Either way, more open zone exploration is certainly a plus. Finally, for Update 2, New Coco. This could mean anything, I guess. Maybe it's simply some additional Coco to collect with a new look, or special numbered Coco with creative hiding spots, or even that hat idea from Bridge of Spirits, or a Coco Garden in the style of the Chow Gardens from Adventure 1 and 2. Though, I wouldn't get your hopes up for that one. And finally we have the big one. Update number 3 promises playable characters and a new story. This is exciting, as I was already picturing how Tails and Knuckles' playstyles could factor into this new open zone format during my time with Frontiers. Though I was thinking about the future, I didn't expect them to be added into this one, but I'll keep my expectations kind of low. as the Starfall Islands were clearly designed to be traversed by Sonic. Tails could work by flying up to these higher areas, and maybe even through loops and some additional platforming set pieces. Though Knuckles is a bit harder to imagine, as many structures here don't look like they'd complement his climbing style we're already used to. Though again, those added level mechanisms could be the solution. I would guess Amy would be the last of the playable characters, though I'm not sure what she would do differently. I know the obvious go-to is give her a hammer, but beyond that, I couldn't tell you. Who knows, maybe the new playable characters aren't even in the same areas that Sonic visits. It does show them with the cyberspace effects in the image. Could just be levels for them, and not the open zone. Either altered for each playstyle, or built completely from scratch. Either way, I'm stoked to see how it plays out. It also shows Sage here, though I'm guessing she's more representative of the new story title than the playable characters one. Maybe this could all be taking place alongside Sonic's story, showing elements from before Sonic managed to relocate his friends. But only time will tell, and we'll have all of this within the year. I'm not sure if any further updates will come, but I want to speak briefly on my own ideas for a DLC. Sonic Frontiers is divided into 4 distinctive islands, each with a different theme and a different accompanying character. But of the 5 main, non-Sonic characters featured, there's only one who we don't get to chat with and collect tokens for. No, not Big, as cool as that would be. He is busy fishing. Dr. Robotnik could be that final accomplice. It could take place while he's still in cyberspace, or it could be fun if we're finding more egg memos pertaining to his arrival on the islands. This would give more backstory on him, Sage, cyberspace, and the ancient civilization. But which island would this take place on? We've already explored all of them. Well, it would be its very own Egg Island, a man-made, egg face-shaped island not far from the shores of the Starfalls. This could have been his initial base before really delving into the secrets of the ancients. Its theming would really stand out from the other islands too, giving more of an egg carrier vibe than the naturistic elements of the others. And you just know he'd have plenty of traps laid out for when the blue hedgehog inevitably comes dashing through to foil his plans. And since the Coco wouldn't venture out this far, maybe we collect flickies and other small animals from beating each of the new badniks scattered across this new area. But that's enough daydreaming for Frontiers. Well, at least for the first one. With the new style and success of Sonic Frontiers, it's almost a given that there will be a Frontiers 2. But I also thought the same for Generations 2, and Mania 2. But if there is going to be a direct sequel, what might that look like? The biggest draw to Frontiers is the open zone, and since this is the first game in that style, we only have the Starfall Islands to base it after. The islands are an easy way to set barriers and offer different regions, so that might be a continuing theme. Sonic games have always been rooted in island exploration, but it could also be fun to see one gigantic open zone with different regions traversable in the same plane. Imagine running from grassy hills to desert dunes to rocky cliffs, then snowy peaks, all in one seamless sprint. Of course, more variety would be welcome too, that's just for example purposes. Maybe the next game even takes place in a more Sonic-feeling world. In Sonic Chronicles, the game needed some more RPG-feeling level layouts, and it was really cool seeing Green Hill Zone transformed in this way. Now, bear with me, cause I know how this sounds, but a Green Hill open zone would be pretty dope. Look, I know we're tired of seeing the same green and checkerboard brown, but this is a bit different. It's not going to be yet another boost level background, but a fully traversable version of his world. Love it or hate it, Green Hill is synonymous with the hedgehog. Just imagine Smash Bros. Without it, the Lego sets, or even the movie's introduction. Green Hill is a part of Sonic, and I think it should be playable one final time. One last Green Hill zone to go out in a bang, and recapture that feeling we got from darting through it for the first time. Though, please Sega, keep Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary out of it this time. Other zones could be fun too, but let's get back to having original level themes. Speaking of levels, I'm not sure if separate level segments are even necessary, not if the open zone provides enough of its own, though they can still be a fun little distraction. I would like to see the boost play taken out of the next one. It's not that I hate it or anything, cause I don't, but it's a playstyle that's ran its course. I'll touch on more of that later. So with the DLC adding playable characters, the second game can't be played solo as Sonic, and it'll be really cool to see the next one built from the ground up with other playstyles in mind. Maybe we could even switch characters at will within the open zone area by tagging out with whichever character we want in the place where we last left them. And finally for Frontiers 2 is the story, and I'm not sure where it will go. Maybe we'll move away from the Starfall Islands, but cyberspace will still be involved. It's even been said that it goes beyond the Starfall Islands. Maybe we'll delve deeper into the Ancients, or somehow find traces of their destroyed planet. Is the end truly defeated, or is there something more sinister behind it? And could there be more advanced civilizations out there? But most importantly, I'm sure we'll see more of Sage, and maybe Eggman will become more unpredictable due to Sage's new role with him. And let's not forget, Big never made his way home. But again, who even knows if there will be a Frontiers 2? There will at least be more games in the mainline series. That's not stopping anytime soon. And maybe Frontiers 2 will be one and the same with another idea I had following the release of Sonic Frontiers. But before that, I think it's best if we talk about the importance of this most recent game. Sonic's New Frontier. Sonic Frontiers is not just another Sonic game, as it really shakes things up with its new gameplay style. There have been changes to gameplay in recent years, such as what we see with Lost World, but what sets Frontiers apart is the sheer ambition of the project, and how it sets things up for an even brighter future. I mentioned in part 1 that there's been a shift in attitude with both Sega and the fans when it comes to the Sonic series, and much of that is evident within Frontiers. The series sort of lost direction after 06. The boost style was introduced. Playable characters were mostly stripped. Sonic's friends were relegated to cameos, and the stories were vastly simplified and written to not be taken seriously. Though it's not all doom and gloom, and I'll be the first one to tell you that it's not as bad as it's made out to be. Though the lack of direction is apparent, unavoidable even, and it was imperative they needed to start steering the series in the right direction. They took a 5-year gap, which is a huge span in the Sonic timeline, and really made sure the next title hit with an impact. And this meant making some changes. The boost style was growing tired for many fans, and the format was changed to bring Sonic into what I dub the 4th era. There's been many attempts by fans to categorize Sonic's long history, but in my opinion, it often overcomplicates things. Things like the Dark Era seeming very opinionated, or the Dreamcast era, which can really only account for 3 games. And one of those is Shuffle. Not to mention Adventure 2 being released on GameCube within a year of the Dreamcast release. And all of that puts other games into unnecessary little boxes littering the timeline. And I understand Generations aided in some of this, with the Dreamcast and modern era separations. But when there's only a classic Sonic and a modern Sonic featured, it's easier to look at it as just classic and modern. But I think there's a much better way to split up the Sonic eras. This might sound crazy, but when determining the eras of a video game series, I think it's easiest to divide it by gameplay. Sure, there will be exceptions to the rule, but there's 3 main gameplay styles you will find in the Sonic series. And I'm sticking to mainline here, but portable games and spin-offs can be added in, it's just neither of those should be qualifying factors to the identity of an era. Okay, classic era. Prominent gameplay? 2D side-scrolling. The attitude of the 90s. Anything before the redesign. And will also include the 8-bit games. The 3D games take a different approach, but are mostly spin-offs and feature the classic design, hence the black eyes. Adventure starts the adventure era. The Dreamcast is a specific console that only kept one of its games exclusive. Adventure is a style, one that isn't bound by name. This style extends beyond Adventure 2 to Heroes, Shadow, and 06, which, of course each of these have their own unique elements, but Adventure 1 and 2 aren't exactly one-to-one to begin with. I'll discuss this more, but Riders and the Advanced Trio can tag along too. Unleashed begins the 3rd era, the Boost era. A much different approach than previous games. This one spans a longer range of time, but the development time between games has grown a lot too. Storybook games are thrown in here as well, as the camera is fixed behind you. And you don't have to tell me Rush was the first Boost game, because this is outlined by main titles. So that's the 3 eras, and obviously there's going to be some outliers orbiting around these era distinctions. 3D Blast doesn't play like Sonic 3, but it's classic. Lost World doesn't boost the same as Colors, but it's in the same time span. And Heroes has a character switch mechanic, but it still mostly plays like an adventure level. And where exactly does Mania fit? Frontiers has an exception of its own, the boost levels, but the main draw is the open zones, and I'm willing to bet that future 4th era games will shed the boost level style. All of that was said to highlight the importance of Frontiers' gameplay switch. A new era doesn't mean much if every couple games are put into a new category. Frontiers really does feel like the start of something new, something bold, a direction that will define the next portion of Sonic's legacy, and I couldn't be any more excited to see how it plays out. We already discussed a Frontiers 2, but the series rarely sticks to one direction. It's unclear what other titles could come this way, but there's been rumors of a new 2D game, an older statement about other Ultimate releases, and even rumors of a proper re-release of Sonic Adventure, brought to us by screenshots featured within Frontiers itself. So here comes the inevitable. If we're talking about Sonic Adventure, and we're talking about bold new directions, a Sonic Adventure 3 discussion is impossible to pass up for your average Sonic fan. Now I realize it may sound counterintuitive to have all this talk of a new gameplay era, then go on to daydream a return to the adventure style. But really, I think a new adventure game in a new direction could be one and the same. During my time with Frontiers, there's been multiple occasions where the area I'm playing through brings up some serious adventure vibes. Early on, there's the bridge that's reminiscent of the Angel Island Bridge. And Sonic even relates this waterfall to the one in Mystic Ruins, instantly making me imagine the surrounding Kronos area as a proxy to that adventure field. I can almost picture Tails' workshop in the distance. But it's reminiscent of levels too. In the desert, this crevice had me feeling like I was trapped in an adventure level. And this underwater cavern on the way to Big's second fishing spot felt like a change-up you'd often see in that era's levels. Even the section up on a cliff feels straight out of Rail Canyon. I didn't go into Frontiers expecting any adventure vibes, but I was pleasantly surprised, and just that feeling had me yearning for an Adventure 3 that no other recent game could give. But I guess we should talk first about what makes an adventure game. So I understand not everyone will agree with me on the adventure era distinction, but that's what I'm basing this next section on. The design philosophies of Adventure 1 and 2 didn't stop after the second game, and 06 especially has many adventure elements, making it a good bookend to this era, all technical issues and personal feelings aside. So what makes an adventure game? It's hard to say for sure, because the only two adventure-titled games already have many differences between them. But I guess we'll start simply with the adventure name. There's been discussions for years now that there's been a Sonic Adventure 3 hiding under our noses this whole time. Sonic Unleashed. While I'll admit, the hub worlds do sort of pull it closer to the adventure style, they're not expansive like the adventure fields. The levels are in the boost style, and the nighttime stages bring it further away from being an adventure game. Among other things. No, the real reason some fans unofficially call Unleashed Sonic Adventure 3 is due to its Japanese title, Sonic World Adventure. There's no 3 in there. Besides, just the word adventure isn't all that significant unless it immediately follows the name Sonic. Or else, Sonic Rush Adventure would be SA3. Or Tails Adventure, which doesn't feature Sonic. Or even the first cartoon, The Adventures of Sonic. See how ridiculous that can make things? The other candidate for a Secret Adventure 3 is Sonic 06, which I've already deemed as similar, and it won't be the last time I mention it either. But 06 also tries to do its own thing, being the first next-gen Sonic game. And also an attempt at a reboot, doing the whole same name as the first game routine that I find absolutely stupid. But that's besides the point. In reality, the only real Sonic Adventure 3 would be a game literally called Sonic Adventure 3. But that could also introduce some issues if it's not made right, as we saw with Sonic 4, and the litany of fans disowning that game from having a numbered title, and later crowning Sonic Mania as the true Sonic 4, though I feel Mania is actually its own thing due to the remixed nature of the game. Back to Sonic Adventure. There's 4 remaining elements I feel that when put together in the right way, make an adventure-style game. The biggest one is level design, which I mentioned a lot already, but just the feeling of the levels is enough to set these games apart. So what is an adventure level? The word turning comes to mind. It's not a straight shot through. Classic games are mainly left to right, and boost games are mainly facing forward. But an adventure level is dynamic. Not only does your character turn to change directions, but your camera can also turn to follow the environment. Many times, this is in conjunction with the platforms, so it's not just a series of hops through. Also, the stop-and-go nature is a big part of it, which sounds like it would be a negative aspect in a Sonic game, but it lets the levels breathe a little. Defeating a series of enemies to be on your way, or finding the right switch in a room with a gate, can break apart the straight-on running segments in what I feel to be a nice change of pace. Sonic is about speed, but he does more than run. And it's easier to smell the flowers of a zone when you're not boosting your way through it. But speed isn't the only factor, because Sonic isn't the only character. The series started out simple, one hedgehog versus one mad doctor. But additional characters were added slowly over time. Sonic Adventure went big with its characters, giving them their own playstyles within their very own stories. This allowed each chapter to play unique from one another, and had specific versions of most levels for every character, instead of traversing the same ground with a slightly different moveset. And more than that, it aided in the storytelling, letting the characters run into one another and see it from a different perspective. The following games kept an emphasis on playable characters, though implemented it in a different way. 2 teams in Adventure 2, with 3 alternating character styles. 4 teams in Heroes, with speed, fly, and power type switching. Companions in Shadow, who are playable with a second controller. And finally, 3 individuals in 06, who each have 2 helping characters with their own abilities. Unfortunately from here, Sonic Team pretty much did away with other characters, giving us instead an altered beast of Sonic, or 2 instances of seeing double. So you only really got your character fix from Mania, the racing games, or mobile dash games, or if you decided to play Boom. Though I guess Forces does have Shadow, or a bit. Otherwise, it's all Sonic the whole way. The story is the next adventure aspect. No specific guidelines, but it has to take itself seriously and have a major impact. Adventure has a growing creature that attempts to destroy a whole city. SA2 has an eclipse cannon threatening the entire Earth. Heroes admittedly doesn't have much, besides the freaking metal madness. Shadow attempts to find his identity as he's aided by an evil alien race. And 06 has a fiery entity that can bring down a whole kingdom with a single tear. In Sonic Colors, he closes down an amusement park. It's fine for what it is, but an adventure-style game needs that urgency. All the various character interactions are essential too, as they play off one another as the story progresses. And is it really even a Sonic game without a long time no see? The premise is one thing, and the motivations are another, but there have to be events too. Things that keep the story moving and evolving. Unleashed and Generations both have substantial threats we face, but there's little really happening in between the opening and the ending to propel the story forward. So it doesn't feel much more than a premise. My final point in an adventure formula isn't even essential, but man does it help. Hub worlds. It's ironic, but to me, the hub world is synonymous with the adventure style, despite the fact SA2 didn't even have one. But I wouldn't want to picture any future adventure games without a hub world. Even Heroes and Shadow skipped out on this, but 06 brings back the adventure fields. Admittedly, they're a lot more barren than how I remember them as a kid, but you get 3 of them to explore, much like SA1, and these lead you to levels, missions, and sometimes characters. But all of this wrapped together gives a better idea to what makes an adventure game. But really, it's more of a concept, or the feeling of the game, than the sum of its parts. Who knows, maybe an adventure-era game is simply just the product of its time. But if the new game pulls from all the strengths of the past and keeps the momentum reinstated in Frontiers, there's no reason why a Sonic Adventure 3 couldn't be great, even if it doesn't have the exact charm of the early 2000s. So what could a Sonic Frontiers to Sonic Adventure conversion look like? Okay, I made mention of hub worlds in the last section for good reason, as I feel they would be the star of the show in a new adventure game. Frontiers has an emphasis on its open zones, with the levels basically acting as challenges to complete across the map. whereas Adventure has its levels as its emphasis, with the hub worlds offering a little exploration between them. The new game should have a healthy balance of each, and for the hub world side of it, the open zone adventure field should be expansive. I'm going to use Adventure as an example in this conversion to make things easier, but for the record, I don't think an Adventure remake of this caliber will come. The elements I discuss could be switched out for original themes for the new game. Okay, the hub world and the open zone field will be one and the same, so Kronos will act as the Mystic Ruins. It's very spacious, and that is good for Sonic speed, but it's also a bit empty. Let's do away with these ruins and put in Tails' workshop. He'll be inside, and by talking to him, we can switch to his story. But let's stay Sonic. There will be other areas of importance. The bridge that leads us to Angel Island, and Knuckles can hang out here. This cave that'll bring us to Windy Valley. The dense jungle with its secrets throughout, leading us to that ancient pyramid with a level inside. And back along the sea, we'll find a transport to the egg carrier, and on the other shore, we'll arrive at the platform and catch the train heading to Station Square that will be departing soon. An expansive version of Station Square. It'll have its sets of levels and activities throughout, but back at the Mystic Ruins, we'll head to Red Mountain. The levels will be visually apparent and baked into the design of the hub worlds. No more magic portals. We're running to each individual level, and that level exists within the same world. Inside the level, it's done in the adventure style mentioned earlier. These levels will be long. They'll have twists and turns, and change-ups, and they'll feel like actual locations being visited and explored, as well as dashed through. And when it's time to change characters, the level entrance can be the same, or maybe we switch things up by having Tails fly higher to reach his level entrance, which would then bring him to a different location of Red Mountain. And Knuckles climbs around the side, entering from a cave in yet another separate level section. And he can track down the Emerald Shards, or whatever they'll have him do. Maybe even Big the Cat is in this next game, but his fishing is more tolerable, like in Frontiers. And this could be his chance to make it out of cyberspace. I'm not going to speculate in Adventure 3's story, cause it could be anything. To me, the gameplay was the most important points to mention. But Frontiers sets up the next game to be something bold. Whether it's Frontiers 2, Adventure 3, or some other original game. The overall Sonic story is only strengthened by reinforcing past lore elements, and additional efforts like Tails Tube and the continuing Hess-style animations help to further clear things up, and patch up plot holes, or even just better connect the stories. Frontiers reintroduces past events and characters, sets up our main characters with new motivations, and sets the stage by bringing everything up to speed before the next major story jump. And it's going to be riveting watching it all unfold. So as you can see, Frontiers has me stoked once again to be a fan of the Sonic series, not just for what Frontiers is, or can be with the DLC, but where the series as a whole can go from here. It really is a new era, Sonic's new frontier. And whether or not Sega sticks to the Frontiers name, revisits the adventure name, or offers something new entirely, I'm confident we're seeing the turning point the series has needed for a while now. And with the series in respectable, credible hands, I have little worry for what's to be seen on the next frontier. Until next time, I want to thank you for watching, and thanks for putting up with my daydreams for an entire video. I'll see you in the next one.